Welcome back to part 2 of my Begin to Budget series. Now, I just want to start off by saying if you have not yet watched part 1, I want you to pause this video, go down into the description box and click on the link for part 1. And part 1 is all about getting you in the right mindset for the work that we're going to do the next couple weeks, creating your budget. If you're going to begin a budgeting journey of your own, it's imperative that you have a good foundation and understanding of what a budget is and what a budget is not. And more importantly, why you need a budget. Yes, you need a budget. So I want you to go ahead and check out that video. There was also some homework with that video where you get a link to go and join my free resource library where you can print out all of the free printables that will be included in this budgeting course. I also have a link down below to this same budgeting course in email form. So even though we're here on YouTube, if you're somebody that you just learn better by being able to read something slowly instead of watching somebody talk and trying to pay attention to them talk and do what they're saying, you can go ahead down below, click on that link and join the email course. Instead, you'll get the same information and the same printables just in an email format instead of video. Great, so now that we got all of the housekeeping details out of the way, who is ready to get started? And while part 1 was more of me just talking to you, trying to motivate you and inspire you that this course is for you, today part 2 is all about taking action. We are going to work this whole video, and by the end of this video you're going to have your very own budget. I'm so excited for you guys. I've gotten a lot of good feedback on the first video, and I'm really hoping that you're going to find this easy to follow along and super actionable. You're going to feel like you know exactly what to do. Now, as always, if you have any questions or you're confused about anything, go ahead and drop me a comment down below in the comment box and I will help you the best that I can. And I love hearing your feedback on these videos, so keep it coming and be sure to subscribe and tap the bell so that you'll be notified when every new video comes out. So like I already mentioned, if you did not take the time and print out the budgeting worksheets when you watched video 1, you're going to need to pause this video, head over to your computer and print out the worksheets so you can follow along. And while you're up, I would also like you to grab your bank statements and your credit card statements. Now, you can just use the most recent month, but I really recommend using at least the past 3 months because we're going to use these statements to gather up all of your expenses, and using at least 3 months is going to make sure that we're also capturing any quarterly bills or quarterly expenses so that we're not leaving those out. Sometimes those can add up, and if you prepare your budget and you don't think about those, you're going to have quite a surprise in a couple months. So go ahead and grab the budgeting worksheets, your bank statements, your credit card statements, and grab a bunch of different colored highlighters while you're at it. If you don't actually have highlighters, any different colored pens would work fine too. Now, the next step is to go to your kitchen table or your desk and clear it off. I mean, I just want you to go up and go like you see them do in TV. All right, don't do that. Find yourself a nice big space where you can spread out and you have a little bit of quiet so you can really focus on the task at hand. Grab your highlighters and your bank statements, and you're going to go through each statement and you're going to use a different color to highlight each category. Now, some of you might not use credit cards for spending, and if so, then you might not need to bother with your credit card statements, but if you're like most of us and you're using credit cards for spending throughout the month, you absolutely want to be sure that you're including your credit card statements in this exercise. So go ahead and go through. For example, you want to go through and highlight any gas purchases that you make when you're filling your car up with gas. Highlight those in pink. You want to go ahead and you want to highlight any of your utility bills or your utility payments in orange. Go ahead and highlight any food purchases that you make in blue, any restaurants in green, so on and so forth. And of course, I really don't care what colors you use for which category. I just want to give you an example so that you're very clear on how I want you to do this. Now, once you've gone through and you've highlighted all of your statements and they look like a pretty rainbow, the next step you want to take is transferring all of those expenses to a piece of paper. So you can even go ahead and grab a clean sheet of paper for every color that you've highlighted, and you can write down every food expense that you have made on one piece of paper. Then you can go ahead and write all of your fuel expenses on another piece of paper, all of your utility expenses on another piece of paper, and so on and so forth. And if you don't have a hard time being organized, you don't need to use all different types of paper. I don't want you to overcomplicate this. I just want to make sure that we simplify it as much as possible so that you're not getting confused, especially if this is your first exposure to trying to create a budget. Another option would be to go ahead and create your own spreadsheet. Again, if you're not somebody that uses spreadsheets often, that's probably just going to overcomplicate this for you. But if you're a super nerd like I am and you are obsessed with spreadsheets, also like I am, then it might make more sense for you to just create a spreadsheet. You'll have all your data in one place, it can total it for you, and then you'd be able to move through this step much more quickly. Whatever method works best for you, that's what I want you to do. Once you get all of your expenses, you're going to go ahead and total it. For example, maybe all of your food expenses at the grocery store for the past 3 months total $1,200. That's giving you an indication that on average, you are spending $400 a month on your grocery bill, right? So we looked at 3 months of bank and credit card statements. There's 3 months in a quarter. So if you are going to take a total of $1,200 that you spent for this quarter, then you're going to divide that by 3 months, and that's going to give you a total of $400. Now that's probably going to vary a little bit each month, but we're just wanting to get a good picture of your finances and your spending and your expenses in this step. Now I just want to take a moment and address some of the emotional aspects of this exercise. Now you have just sat down and looked at all of the money you've spent in the past 3 months. For some of us, especially if you really haven't paid much attention to the money that you spend, or you've never sat down and tracked your spending habits, this exercise can be emotional. Taking a good hard look at your spending habits and your finances can be really difficult. Maybe what you see looking back at you on these pages is decades of financial mistakes. Maybe you had an unfortunate accident and you simply fell behind and haven't been able to catch back up. Maybe you've had a shopping addiction and you've never really sat down and faced it and looked at these cold hard numbers. But in order to be able to make progress and make positive changes in your finances, you have to get really honest about what got you here today in this position that you're in. Maybe you're not even in a bad position. Maybe you just want to learn how to budget so that you can better manage your money. If so, that is awesome. Keep up the good work. But if you are sitting here frustrated and upset by the way you've managed your money up until now, it's time to make some adult decisions today when we are creating your budget. It's time to forgive yourself for the prior money mistakes you've made. And it's time for you to get serious and make the commitment that starting today, right now, you're going to make some major changes in your life and in your finances. Like we talked about in part 1, this process can be very difficult. It's going to take some serious commitment and self-control. You need to make a promise to yourself that you are going to give budgeting your very best shot and you are not going to give up in a month when things start to get hard. Okay. So once you have added up and totaled every expense on your sheet of paper and you have divided them by 3, you now have an estimated monthly total of what you spend in each category. So the next step is to go ahead and grab your budgeting sheets, and using the numbers you've just calculated, I want you to fill in each category on your budgeting sheets. Now you'll notice on the sheets there is an estimated section and an actual section. When we are sitting down to create your budget, to create your spending plan ahead of the month, remember, we're creating a plan for the money that's going to come in before the month even begins. You're going to be sure to fill in the estimated section. We're going to save the actual section for when you actually spend that money, and then we're going to compare and see how close your estimates were. So for our purposes right now, go ahead and fill in the estimated section. Now, when I was creating these sheets, I did my best to think of every possible expense category I could, but there's no way I would be able to cover all of them. But I was sure to leave enough room so that you are able to cross off and fill in extra categories that you need that aren't included on the sheet. So right now, I want you to take a couple minutes and fill in all these categories that are applicable to you. Also, be sure to fill in the month, and then you don't need to worry about the lines at the end of the second budgeting sheet because we'll get to those a little bit later. Once you've filled in all your expenses, be sure to go ahead and grab your calculator and total each section as you work through the sheets. Next, I want you to go ahead and fill in the income portion of the budgeting sheet. Now, if you already know your income and there's zero fluctuations, you can skip the estimated column and just mark it right in the actual column. But for people like us, whose income is variable, meaning it fluctuates or it changes every single paycheck, I fill in the estimated section. That way I'm able to get a clear picture of what I estimate our income and expenses to be for the month, and then I'm able to tweak things once I receive our actual income numbers. Make sure to include any side hustles, any disability payments, any child support payments you receive, any income that's coming into your family at all, you want to be sure to include in the income area. If you remember in part 1, we talked a lot about a budget giving you control and a budget not being restrictive. So here's where you get to have some fun. We are going to work on what is called a zero-based budget. A zero-based budget, or zero-sum budget, you might also hear it called, simply means that your income minus your expenses will equal out to zero. The reason we're going to do this type of a budget is also because of what we talked about in part 1, which is when you leave extra money sitting around in your accounts, more often than not, it's going to end up being spent on something probably unplanned, probably something spontaneous because you feel like you have extra money. And while I understand that that may not be the case for everybody, it still is going to keep you from reaching your financial goals as quickly as you could otherwise. So every dollar that we have left, we are going to appropriate somewhere. Remember, we talked about giving it a name or giving it a job. So you have already included all of your expenses. Now, the next thing we want to focus on is what to do with the rest of the money we have left. So right now, if you were to take your total income minus your total expenses for the month, hopefully you have some money left. Now, depending on your income level or how much debt you might have, that may not be the case. In fact, for my husband and I, when I would sit down and do our budget, we were completely upside down. We had negative money left every single month. If you even watch our budgeting videos now that I post on YouTube each month, I'll link that playlist up here. You can check those out. I still show negative sometimes. So it's very possible that you're going to have a negative number, and we are going to work through that. So I don't want you to freak out. I don't want you to panic. I promise. We're going to figure this all out together. That's the whole point of these videos. But right now, I'm just speaking to the people that have some extra money. I'm going to use very simple numbers right now just for the ease of example. Say you're looking at your budgeting sheets and you have income of $1,000, you have monthly expenses of $700. That's going to leave you with $300 currently in your budget. But we don't want to just leave that $300 there. We want to do something with that $300 so it doesn't get spent unplanned. Here is where you get to have some fun. Maybe you want to save for a vacation next year. Maybe it's your anniversary, and it's very important to you that you go celebrate on an island. Here is where you're going to start budgeting for your vacation. So you're going to start what's called a sinking fund, and that simply means that you are going to appropriate some of your money each month into a fund that you're going to save for a specific reason. So at this time, you still have the $300 left. You can decide that you are going to take $50 of that $300 and save it in a vacation sinking fund every single month. So now you're going to mark under vacation $50 and we're going to subtract that. Now we have $250 left. So maybe you also are looking to get out of debt much quicker than you are by simply paying your minimums. So now you're going to take $200 extra dollars and you're going to put that towards extra debt payments each month. So go ahead and take your $200 away. That's leaving you with $50 more. And here is why I'm trying to explain to you that a budget gives you freedom. So you can afford many, many things, but you can't afford all the things. You need to put on your big girl pants and decide what you need to do with this extra $50. You can put it in a savings account. You can decide to put that towards debt. Maybe Christmas is coming up soon and you would like to save that extra $50 each month towards Christmas. Maybe you would like to increase one of your other expenses that you've allocated on your budgeting sheets. Maybe you've given yourself $0 towards restaurants and you want to now allocate that $50 each month towards being able to go out to eat once a month. So you have the freedom to choose how you're spending your money, but you have to choose. You have to choose and you have to plan ahead of time. Now you can see here from our calculation that we are now left with $0 at the end of our month. So we've taken our income minus all of our expenses, and we're including the extra debt payment, the saving for vacation, and the extra restaurant money in our expenses now, because it's all the money that we're spending throughout the month. So now when you take the $1,000, you're subtracting all of these other amounts and you're left with zero. So that is the zero-based budget. Now, what happens when you're on the flip side, like us? What happens if you take your income minus your expenses and you're showing negative $200 every single month? What does that mean? What that means is you need to account for $200 somewhere else in your budget so that you can bring that negative $200 up to zero and you're going to be even. You're going to have a balanced zero-based budget. Now there's two ways to do that. The first way is to increase your income. While you're going through this process, especially if you're paying off debt as you're budgeting, I highly recommend that you attempt to increase your income in some way. This could mean starting a side hustle. This could mean going to your boss and asking for a raise. This could mean picking up some extra overtime or maybe even getting a part-time job on the side. There's many ways to increase your income, and while that's not what this video is about, I highly suggest you do some research and work to increase your income while we also work to decrease your expenses. So if your income's going up and your expenses are going down, you can see you're going to have a more balanced budget overall. How can we decrease expenses? A couple ways. I'm not going to tell you that you can never, ever get a Starbucks because I love Starbucks. So I want you to be able to still do the things you love while still being able to work towards reaching your financial goals. We're going to take your budgeting sheets back out, and with a new mindset, with a mindset of having a negative budget, I want you to review each expense. Do you really need $100 for new clothing every month, or do you think you could maybe drop that down to $150? Because if you're being honest with yourself, you probably already have a ton of clothes in your closet that you're not even wearing. Or maybe you could start selling some of those clothes that you're not wearing and you can earn extra money to purchase new clothing. But while you're doing that, you can drop your clothing expense down each month and only use the money you earn to buy new clothes. So right there, you can find extra money. Maybe all of your research in your statements showed you that you were spending $300 out at restaurants each month. Take a good look at that. Is that really necessary? Do you really have to go out and get pizza every single week with your family? Could you maybe stay home and grab 2 frozen pizzas at the grocery store instead? How much money would that save you each month if you just made that one small change? So I want you to be really honest with yourself here, because at the end of the day, it's your money, it's your choices, and I can't tell you the right or wrong way to spend your money. You have to spend your money based on your values and your priorities. So if going out to dinner and getting pizza every single week is actually high on your priority list and high on your list of values, maybe that's the way you and your family reconnect every week. If that's super important to you, then you should keep that in your budget. I suggest either finding a cheaper place to get pizza or finding another category that you can cut. So if you're going out for pizza every single week, Figure out a way to spend less money at the grocery store. I have a whole bunch of resources on my site teaching you how to meal plan, teaching you how to save money on groceries. I'll actually link a video up here where I talk all about how to save hundreds of dollars every single month on groceries. In fact, when my family and I started budgeting, we were spending about $800 a month on groceries for a family of 4. We have been able to cut that down, and we only spend $400 to $450 a month for our whole family. That freed up an extra $300 to $400 in our budget every single month. And guess what? We're not going hungry. We're fine. We eat plenty of food. So I promise you that there are ways to cut your expenses. You have to get honest. You have to be willing to make changes, and you have to get creative sometimes. If you were able to just easily find $200 by going through your expenses, then you can adjust those categories accordingly. So if you currently have $700 for groceries, you can adjust that down to $500. And now when you take another look at your income minus expenses equation, it's going to equal zero. You did it. You balanced your budget. That is how you create a zero-based budget. Now, I realize, guys, that this is a lot easier for me to just sit down and say it. It's a lot harder to sit down and do it and put it into practice. But these are the steps you need to take to create your budget each month. And the reason it is so important to do this before the month actually begins is so that you have time and you're able to fiddle with these expenses a little bit and you're able to create this plan. Maybe you only have to decrease your restaurants some months. Maybe some months you have plenty of money in your budget, but maybe some months you don't. Maybe some months you want to pay extra on debt. You can create that plan ahead of time, and then you'll know how to execute throughout the month. You'll know how to spend your money because you have already created the plan. It's laid out for you every single month. So it's very, very important that you do this before the month begins. It doesn't mean you can't tweak it throughout the month. You're able to make changes. In fact, I change mine all the time. These days, I normally do most of our budget on a spreadsheet because it's so much easier to go in and make changes and it will recalculate everything for you automatically. I do have my budgeting spreadsheet template for sale on my Etsy shop. I'll leave that link down below. You can check it out. But if this is your first time budgeting, I highly recommend that you do it at least the first couple months on pen and paper. It gives you a much better understanding of your money and your budgeting and your spending habits. There's just something about having to write it out each month that really just helps you get a better understanding, especially in the beginning. There's a couple more things I just want to mention before I finish out this video. I know this was a long one, but when you're creating your budget, it is imperative that you find some money for fun. Now, I know you might be super tight and have no extra money. I don't care if it's only $5. I want you to prioritize some sort of fun or personal money in your budget. This is going to help. This is going to help you not feel so restricted or deprived. Again, if you're really in debt and you're working super hard to get out of debt, there's going to be a lot less extra money. I get it. I've been there. I promise you. I understand how you feel. But hear me. If you hear nothing else through this video, hear this. You have to have some sort of release, something to look forward to throughout the month. You are going to be sacrificing and giving a lot up in the beginning of this journey, but that doesn't mean you don't deserve to have some type of enjoyment. I don't care if it's only $5. Budget $5. Take your kids for donuts on the first day of each month. Something small. It really doesn't matter what it is. I'll leave that up to you. But just a couple dollars can make a huge difference, especially in the beginning. If you're not operating on a super small budget, I suggest you definitely budget in some personal money for you and your partner or your spouse. It can be any amount you choose as long as it fits within your budget. This is going to allow you to have some freedom to be able to spend that money on what whatever you want. Even if it's completely extra and unnecessary, it's your personal money, it's in your budget, it's accounted for, it's fine. Spend it, enjoy it, guilt-free. And doing so is going to help you more rigidly stick to the other guidelines and the other amounts that you have set in your budget. One last thing before I leave you for today, I want to talk about the bottom sections of the budgeting sheets. So we're looking here on page 2 where it talks about monthly goals. This is super important. I want you to sit down when you're doing your budget, make sure you're sitting with your spouse, your partner, or talking to an accountability partner about this section. Now that you've done your budget and you have a really good, clear picture of your financial situation on a monthly basis, I want you to determine what your goals are for this month. Are you going to start saving for that anniversary vacation like we mentioned? Are you going to start saving for Christmas like we mentioned? Are you setting a goal of paying $200 extra on your debt each month? I want you to take a couple minutes and clearly fill out that section. So when you are having a hard time throughout the month, or maybe you're getting off course, pull out your budgeting sheets, take a look at what you've determined your goals to be for the month, and just remember that that is why you're budgeting, because you're working towards these specific goals. Maybe it's only one goal. Maybe you're working towards one specific goal each month, and that is simply to get out of debt. You're going to do every single thing you can and use every dollar you can to push yourself and make progress towards that goal. So just remember each month when you're sitting down and figuring out your budget to take an extra moment or two and write down some specific goals, because like we said before, just the act of writing them down and getting them out into the universe is a great first step. Now, the very last section where it has notes on what worked and what you can improve, we're actually going to do that at the end of each month. You're just going to take a couple minutes, check over your budget. Now, don't forget, as the month progresses, when your actual expenses come through, fill in the actual space for that category. At the end of the month, you can go ahead and total all the actual lines, and that's going to give you a really great idea, especially in the beginning of your budgeting journey, how close your estimates were. So maybe you estimated that you're going to spend $500 on food at the grocery store this month, and maybe at the end of the month, when you fill in what you've actually spent, you'll see that you really only spent $400. Now you have an extra $100 at the end of the month that you can throw towards debt. So take a look at those goals you just wrote out and use that extra money that's left over at the end of the month to support those goals. Keep an eye on these actual columns each month. After you've been budgeting for 3 or 4 months and you see the same trends every single month, that's a great indicator that you can go ahead and adjust your estimated amount for that category. So if you see month after month after month, you're not spending near as much on groceries as you had estimated, you can just go ahead and change your estimate. Just go ahead and make your estimate $400 instead of $700. That way, you'll start getting a much better feel for your spending habits, for your budgeting habits, and seeing how your estimates pan out each month. And over time, your estimates are going to become more and more accurate. So that is all for video number 2. I know this was a lot today, guys. If you've hung with me all the way to the end, that's for you. I'm so proud of you. I'm excited for you. If you have any questions, please leave them down below. Don't forget to subscribe and tap the bell so that you can be notified every time each new video comes out. I would love to hear your feedback for this video down in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.